Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, in this video today, we are going to be talking about my unpopular interior design opinions. Listen, I share my design opinions here on the internet all the time. Some people think I shouldn't, but I do. And some of them are really low-hanging fruit, right? Like who actually likes word signs anymore, double kitchen islands, or they want Tuscan kitchens. Like I make fun of stuff that a lot of people agree with me on. But this video, we're talking about some things that are unpopular, opinions that are gonna be a little controversial and spicy. So let's get to it. But first, of course, I have to thank today's sponsor, which is going to be DeleteMe. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I was plagued with getting these awful, annoying, random scam calls at all hours in the day. I would actually get more than one of these calls in a single day. Sometimes I would get several in just like a few hours of each other. They were so irritating. And then I got DeleteMe, and I can honestly, genuinely say that I don't get any of these scam calls anymore. And that's because DeleteMe helps keep your personal information private by removing your data from hundreds of data broker websites. So their platform is super easy to use. All you have to do is submit your information and DeleteMe does the rest. So they will actually contact all these data brokers and request your data removal, which means that you no longer get these scammy phone calls, which drive you crazy. So if you're like me and you have a million of these scam calls that are hitting your phone every minute of every day, which is driving you crazy, try DeleteMe and get 20% off US consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/nicklewis and use promo nicklewis at checkout for that 20% discount. Thank you, DeleteMe, for sponsoring this video, for giving me my time back, and also making me not go nuts. So thank you for that. So now let's get back to some of those unpopular interior design opinions. Okay, first up on my list is going to be that I love a microwave in a kitchen island. I know, y'all hate it. People hate it. People hate the microwave in the kitchen island, and I think that it's great. Let's talk about why people hate it, and then I'll tell you why I love it. So people hate it because, I don't know, it's like a hazard, like children or something are gonna put themselves in a microwave or something. I don't know what kids do, but honestly, if your kid's stupid enough to crawl in a microwave, I don't want to get canceled. Listen, you know, I get why people don't like them. You know, they think that you have to bend down, that it's annoying to get your food in and out, like you're using your microwave all the time, and like it's really irritating to have them below kind of countertop level, and they prefer to have them up so that they're easier to grab. Or the super dated but still somewhat popular, or like the over-the-range microwave where you've got sort of your stovetop or your glass, you know, your cooktop or your stove, your range, whatever, and then above that you put the microwave, which is kind of super dated. It feels very 80s, 90s, but anyway, people still do them. I get it. And by the way, my microwave is also like up in the upper cabinetry or whatever, but that's because I wouldn't have chosen it, because I get why people don't like them in the island or in the peninsula where they're like below the countertop level. I get it, hazard, blah, blah, blah. Here's why I love them. Screw safety, first of all. No, just kidding. The first reason is just because microwaves are ugly. Microwaves are ugly, and I prefer to hide them. I think that if you can have a standalone microwave and put it in a butler's pantry or something, that's great. If you want to hide it in an appliance garage, that's awesome too. I actually like a countertop microwave. I know that feels super, super, super dated, but actually it's much easier to hide them. But if you want a built-in microwave, I think that it is a fine choice. It might not be the perfect choice for you, and that's fine, but I actually like the microwave below countertop level and actually putting it in the island. Mostly because they're ugly, and I don't necessarily want to have to look at a microwave that is taking up that prime real estate above the cabinetry, and most certainly above the range, where you could do something actually really cool above the range. So I like them down there. I really do. The other reason is I think, in general, people are using microwaves less. A lot of modern appliances, if you're putting in a brand new, you know, doing a renovation or whatever, people have speed ovens, they have convection ovens, like they have ovens, combi, stoves, things, whatever. They have different appliances that are out there that are oftentimes producing better quality food that actually retains a lot of the moisture, not gonna be completely dried out like it is in a microwave, or it comes out, you know, feeling like you're eating a shoe, you know, and actually almost just as fast as a microwave is. Like it just takes a few minutes to sort of heat leftovers, as opposed to a microwave, which is also only gonna take a couple of minutes, but is ultimately gonna dry out your food and maybe make it taste not that great. So it kind of questions in sort of really contemporary kitchens whether you actually even need a microwave at all. I think that's why I prefer it sometimes below in the kitchen island or in a peninsula or something, because you're taking something that you're not using super regularly and you're actually using it as an occasional use appliance rather than something that gets prime time use where you're gonna be using it every single day above the countertop. So controversial as it may be, most people hate it down there. I super get it, but I actually like it in the island. Controversial as that may be. Okay, next controversial interior design opinion is going to be, just because it's vintage doesn't mean it's good. I feel like someone needed to say it. Someone needs to say it. You know, I love vintage. I recommend all the time. I'm like, you know, go vintage shopping. If you can't afford something, go to Facebook Marketplace. I say that all the time on this channel. So at first, I'm gonna pull you back before you say, hang on a minute, you're full of crap because you're definitely being a hypocrite here. Listen, I understand that. I get that perspective, but hear me out. I love vintage. I think it's great. It's combining a lot of really interesting trends, I think, that are happening right now. One, sustainability, which is, it's obviously, if you're going to be buying something that's gonna go in a landfill, that it's going to be better than buying something that is brand new. It means that you can get something with character, which is wonderful. And a lot of people are really looking for those really unique pieces. Combining different interior design styles is super popular right now. So rather than just having a signature sort of Instagram looking apartment, having something that's a little bit more reflective of who you are and sort of found pieces, that's really popular right now. So, and budget. Like oftentimes new stuff is really, really expensive, and the pandemic made everything even more expensive and lead times were really bad. And so finding vintage was a really great way to be able to kind of cut through all that. I get it. I love vintage too. I think it's great. But sometimes, this is where the controversial part kicks in, people sort of use vintage a little bit as like a halo effect to basically say like, this must be good because it's vintage. And like, sometimes it's just not good. Like sometimes like there's good vintage and there's bad vintage. Like there's good, like, oh my God, look at this. I found this 1950s Danish armchair that I bought or whatever. And it's like, oh, that's amazing. Or look at this Facebook Marketplace find. That's like, I found this amazing cool glass thing from 1981 or whatever. And it's like super fabulous. I get it, but I also think that a lot of it's crap. And a lot of it is just you're inheriting other people's garbo because they wanted to get rid of it because it's just not good. It's broken. Or like, I've been to vintage shops and I'm like, no, that is an IKEA cheese grater with rust on it. I'm sorry, but you cannot call that vintage and try to charge me like $15 for it. Nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not having it. And I see all these really, really beautiful spaces that people put online and they're so proud of them. And I'm like, yep, they're beautiful. They're gorgeous. I get it. I love it. But then they're like, oh, and I also got this vintage armchair and it's like a pleather 1990s sort of armchair in like this black pebbled leather. And I'm like, no, I get it. Like, I know you're like, oh, it's super cool because it's vintage. But I'm like, but is it cool though? Like, let's take a step back. Really what happened is a Gen Xer just like emptied out this old armchair that they've had kicking around. Then you've got some peeling pleather leather armchair now that you've inherited. And I just think maybe it wasn't good in the first place. You know, like I question some of these things that people are buying from a long time ago. And I just think, again, this is a controversial opinion. Just because it's vintage doesn't mean it's good. Like there's thrifted items that just should stay on the shelf. But I feel like it has this sort of halo effect where you feel like you can't critique it because you're just like, no, well, it's vintage. And it's like, so obviously it's better. And I get it. They don't build them like they used to. I understand there's good vintage. There's stuff that's way higher quality from decades ago because they actually took the time and the care and didn't just like pump it out in a factory and God knows where. I get that. I get it. But some of it, not all of it, but some of it is just crap. And I think we need to just acknowledge that because I don't hear anybody saying vintage is sometimes crap. And they should because it is sometimes. Okay, next unpopular design opinion is that like dupes are fine for some people. Dupes are fine. I feel like a lot of people hate on dupes. I have seen people on YouTube, remain nameless. I have seen people on the socials and they have said like, you're recommending copies. You're recommending people steal interior, like steal design, like beautiful timeless design pieces. And they're like stealing and copying and I get it. And it's like, I understand that. And I do think that we need to acknowledge that a dupe is not the same thing as the original, right? Like it's not the same when you go and you get some sort of a beautiful like Herman Miller chair versus if you necessarily get like a dupe like from Wayfair. Like they're not the same, okay? And I think we just need to sort of acknowledge that they're not the same. The construction is gonna be different. The care put into the design is different. Like all the different materials, like they're different, okay? But having said that, let's also be real. Most people cannot afford the brand new or the original versions, okay? They can't afford the original pieces. And so it's a little bit let them eat cake, in my opinion, to just sort of say like, well, you can't afford it, don't get the dupe. You should just go to Target and buy whatever you want or whatever. I just think really and truly, we need to be honest about the fact that some people can afford the designer. And again, they get the quality that comes with buying the designer piece. They get the vision, they get the construction, they get the materials. Like I get that and they will pay for that. But then there's a huge other group of people, let's call them the 98%, that can't afford that and will never be able to afford that, but still deserve to live in beautiful spaces. And I still think that having well-designed furniture for them is a wonderful thing. So I think that dupes, even though a lot of people here on the internet hate on dupes and say that they're garbage or that they're really not good or whatever, I understand their perspective. I think they're really sort of taking it from the defense of the designer, the original designer, the original artist. And I get that, but also let's be real. It's just not happening where they're going to be able to afford the sort of original or even source a vintage piece. And it's a little elitist to think that they're going to be able to afford that or that they should. So, you know, just because you can, love that for you and go and buy it and enjoy it, knowing that you have the original and that you benefit from the wonderful things that come with that, like I mentioned. But also, I don't think it's nice to just like crap on people that can afford these dupes, because I think that makes sense for them, whether it's on Amazon or Wayfair or preferably some smaller company that is able to sort of be inspired by some of these classic designer pieces. Okay, my next unpopular design opinion is going to be that brass fixtures are not over. Okay, now I have gone on record to say I actually really don't love the metal trends. I just think they're really stupid, because if you wait three to 5 years, there's just gonna be a new metal. And they all never really go away. If you're taking like, let's look at matte black, let's look at chrome or brushed nickel, and then you look at like brass, right? Or gold or whatever. Quality stuff, which a lot of it's not quality to be clear, but like quality stuff never really goes out of style. Like it's really just about the color choices and the design choices that are going to make sense for your particular space. So if your color palette and your sort of the style that you're trying to have in your home supports having brass fixtures, then wonderful, put in brass fixtures. But a lot of people seem to think that brass fixtures are over, they're never coming back, and they're stupid. People have been calling brass fixtures over for well over a decade. I have seen more brass fixtures are back or brass fixtures are dated articles over the last 15 years. They can't, like literally they're all at the same time. You look at one article and they'll say they're back, and then you look at another one and they'll say they're over. Like it doesn't, it's all sort of dumb. And again, like all trends are kind of stupid, but they're just kind of fun because we all sort of follow them because, well, that's what we do as humans, right? But I would still say that metal trends are particularly stupid. I think in the end, it's just about finding the metal that is going to make sense for your home. So a good example, I just featured in my newsletter, The Interior Scoop, and also in a recent YouTube video, I talked about IKEA's latest collection. I talked about the really bright, zany, kooky colors that they've got going on there. It makes sense that they're paired with chrome, because if you paired them with brass, they would look weird, because super really bright, bold, saturated color is tricky to incorporate with brass, which already reads as such a particular color choice already, right? So oftentimes they're gonna be really competing. And so brass doesn't really make sense for that type of style that is trending right now. But I think that the demise of brass, I think, has been proclaimed way too quickly, because I think in the end, there's still a lot of really popular interior design styles that will use brass, and wait 2 or 3 years, and there will be another interior design style that will start coming up that will incorporate in brass. And brass is a timeless metal. It is a timeless material, especially if you're using a quality sort of unlacquered brass, something that is going to age, something that looks like that is really authentic, and it's not sort of cheap brass that's been sort of painted, it has like a painted finish, and it's from who knows what, you know, collection or whatever, you know. But if you have real, authentic, true brass as a material, I think it is beautiful and gorgeous and will always look good. And a lot of people say that it's over because people have said that brass is over for a long time, and it's still here. It will be around for as long as I have this channel, I guarantee you. Okay, and then my next unpopular design opinion is going to be that some patterns can read as a neutral. I hear all the time that people are really scared of using pattern, and I get it. I'm not personally a huge, massive pattern guy myself, but I do think that people have sort of proclaimed that patterns are really, really tricky, because even just incorporating one can be really, really tricky. And they really struggle with taking these really super complex patterns and putting them together, which I totally understand. I've talked about that on my channel before. I do get why people struggle with this, but I think sometimes we're treating pattern as all being the same. And I think stripes and polka dots and some really basic, simple patterns, which is really just repetition, like that's all a pattern is it's repetition, which is a really important part of interior design, read almost basically as a neutral, and they're fairly easy to incorporate into spaces. So those really simple basic patterns, those stripes, those polka dots, right? Those checks, those very basic checks, they are used in design and have been used for decades. They are timeless, and I don't think people should necessarily be really scared of them. I think when you're trying to mix big complex florals and you're trying to mix it with big complex geometric prints, Yeah, guess what? That's tricky to try to put together. And sometimes it comes out in disastrous results. If you're trying to take leopard print and you're putting it into some maxilla space next to some florals, it might be really tricky to work those two together. But if you're trying to do a really beautiful, simple pinstripe and you want to put that in some of your upholstery and you're just struggling to think like, is it going to be too overwhelming for the space? It can actually read basically as a neutral and can feel really, really simple and easy to incorporate into your space. So people are scared of patterns, and I get it, because when you're mixing lots of complex patterns together, it can be really scary, and I understand that. But if you're using simple basic ones, don't be too concerned about it. Use pattern. It really isn't that scary. It's really just incorporating really simple shapes over and over together into a pattern formation. That's really all you're doing. And so don't be too scared about using patterns in spaces, because I think if you're going for some really simple timeless ones that have been used for centuries, you should use them with confidence. That's it for me for today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. I haven't made one of these in a long time, and I'm gonna link to a playlist where I did some, ages ago now, so you can go take a look at those. I've got a few of these videos already up here on my channel from a couple of years back. Go and check them out. I have more unpopular design opinions. You never know when I'm gonna make another one of these videos, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye.